Nothing can change for the better. Mankind is wrestling with his own folly, and in spite of any actual attempt at revolution. It's called denial. Denial that the games we play are played in vanity and for the advantage of a select few. Pop culture has us chasing ghosts, floating from one trend to the next. So I want to propose an alternative. Let's play a new game. Something completely unlike what we've become accustomed to. The playground is your soul, and the goal is for you to extract it into the real world. If a human being wishes to be free, he must possess honesty and empathy. He must see himself every moment a player in participation, yet a sole entity whom chooses his own desires without restraint of habituation or fear. No matter what, he must be happy and free to be himself. Recognition from others comes second. If we are truly to live, let these boundaries be discarded as remnants of fear. Loneliness can be a form of cowardice, but so can conforming only to see one's true self drag in the mud. Strike up a rebellion through creating yourself and not destroying what is made. No man is an island, but no group is bestowed rightness inherently. People please all you want, but your identity will never leave you. It is now time to forget them. Let your so-called friends drown in culture's sinking ship. Every human in the past is a mistake, up until you. You must remember you are not the numbers on television. You must not only absolve yourself, but reimagine as well. We need to destroy polite, neurotic culture, learning to speak the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Embrace, please. Embrace that what is known to you familiarly. Do not regard the naysayers who will speak lies of endless tragedies to caution yourself with. Here, I'll start. I am at war with culture. No one is truly on my side. It's not that I believe people are out to get me, but I see within them everything that I am failing to bring forth. I am then that which is readily capable of destroying expectations, for to presume my stance in the presence of that which is endeavoring to remove your clouds of doubt is an assault. You who permeate physical reality, you who molest yourself by denying the ulterior suffering hidden inside. And I see this every day, in more ways than you will ever hear about. Maybe you've heard of something called selective hearing. Because of this, there are frightfully infinite means of sabotage and subterfuge that lie in between a true statement and its further development into a manifestation of said truth. In any logical discourse, which should, of course, be the norm any time your judgment may fall harshly upon another conscious being, lest you create a victim to your own ideological preferences, this is a type of evil, because, as anyone who is even slightly open to the force of good in the world will find out, there's always more reality than just your own narrow scope of truths. Not to say they are necessarily wrong in their thoughts, but in the dismissal of infinitesimal other perspectives, the individual may lose sight of greater prospects. It can in this way be applied to the group, by drowning out anyone who is opposed to the zeitgeist as it stands. Though I have spoken to many different people, I am certain none of them have truly heard me, so I want to cite "If you could save yourself, you'd save us all" by Ween. And I say this for a very clear and simple reason. As soon as you know the truth and experience it firsthand, there's absolutely no reason for you to not want and feel the burn inside to extinguish all that is lies and blasphemy. And the lies are everywhere. In every sentence, every flick of the tongue holds a lie thinly veiled underneath it for anyone with the armament of truth to decimate. Here's a nice simple taste of delicious truth juice for all the haters I have had to deal with in my life. I have only ever been trying to be in service to posterity, but more often than not people are trying to see the demon in the other before seeing the angel. The irony in all of this is that I am diagnosed with something called oppositional defiant disorder, or ODD. This is just one of the many ways my word is cut down to size. If anything, I am slightly neurotic only because I bear the weight of the world with my personal mission, and would easily stake my own life on the truth of what I will put forth. So try to understand, being I have gone through various hells inflicted by other so-called just people, that I bear nothing but relentless opposition against any of the enemies of true logic, and those who oppose the habit of clear, righteous doctrine that could, and hopefully would, uphold that true logic. After all, logic is all I have in my possession to abide by. I have no PhDs or other qualifications, but I do get along because people have always said that I am smart or even gifted. It's all good fun, but does it mean anything? Well, not really, but yes, it does resound with some obvious conclusions one can reach simply by observing how I may handle a situation differently from anyone else. The key word here is discernment, but humility can be a slippery slope to conformist tendencies, mostly because when you try to be truthful about your feelings, you'll be too busy circumventing all the crap that gets thrown in your face for even implying that someone may be wrong in even the very slightest way. And so it goes that you will deny time and time again your true feelings, because the only way you can get along is by appealing to the notions which are actively reinforced without any question otherwise. Put yourself in my shoes for a mere moment. When I look at a retarded person, incapable of even verbalizing for themselves, I feel the most torrid wave of emotions. Not only horror at the visual I'm receiving of severe impairment and disfigurement, but because this is the most immediate demonstration of what has been done wrong. I know I can help this person, but here are their guardians, here to protect this poor man from what in reality would save him. Can you imagine the vicarious sense of guilt I may have here? This is not actually the worst part, though. The worst part is the babying that goes on between those who rule and benefit from the norm and those who are subjected to their force of propaganda. This continual display of cheerfully upholding lies feels like no less an aggravated assault to me when I am in an environment where it is displayed for any and all to see. The choice of other people is often to see me as something which imposes itself, yet supposedly, by what is known as just systems and morality, I have done exactly what I have been taught to do. Perhaps there is inherent corruption of the psyche, which takes form while simultaneously disguising itself as something noble, because there is also a continual plane of the preservation of one's ego. Value in the moral sense is obscured because inherent selfishness is ironically selling itself as a bringer of justice. This is obviously a paradox of the will, yet we assume its authenticity and choose to regard each other in this false sense of delineated purpose by a constant gambit of different forms of what is supposedly objective principles. By assuming the truth, we cut off any potential to the contrary, and delusion proliferates. Life becomes but a series of platitudes that do nothing to enlighten our purpose. We forget the very notion of purpose which we felt so strongly in the state of consciousness of our childhood, and wonder about the purpose of life when it was once so clear. Happiness, so easily available to us as children, is out of reach evermore. Happiness is an endlessly transient phenomena to our culture, set about by forces that want to endlessly tell you that you're not enough without your, in the word of Dr. Seuss, the need. Don't be mistaken, and with a keen eye, you can see the play as it is put forth rather than how it wants to be seen. The play is convincing, simply because it will offer you not a single alternative. The need for charisma, the chase of titles and recognized deeds, endless maintenance of an aesthetic front bearing little actual constitution. There is no room left for the spiritual in this world of temporal distractions. The world may tie itself to the morphine drip in the wake of this in all too many ways to count. Denial is such an easy path, but someone has to professionally disagree with me or all is lost. The more you know that gives you freedom and individual power, the more hated you will become. They would prefer to suffer forever at the hands of their own ignorance before realizing they alone are the cause. Conformists cannot bear to see a man successful in anything but their own predefined notions of success. Every kind word is a lie up until the point where you depart from their expectations, which are endlessly self-effacing. Sharks, all of them. You are to question not, and be held continuously aloft by it, never mind the suicides and psychosis and madly driven world circumstances that are just there somewhere along the surface. We have an array of confounding intentions manifest in our political reality that does nothing but foster further animosity among the people. These grandstanders have nothing to offer us but filibuster and a rotting away of adherence to logic. Culture reinforces these notions. Consider alcohol, the only drug that really gets put on a pedestal in mainstream society. Alcohol does not make you logical. Alcohol does not make you seek out a solution that will compromise to the best long-term benefit and ease to everyone. It tells you that my every want is a deep pathological need, goddammit, and furthermore, it's a part of who I am. And if you can't figure a way through my detailed soliloquy of various unrequited, disastrous, temporary wants, then you are the same beast that made me this way in the first place, etc., etc., etc. They want you to be sucked into their drama, their social struggles, and the same kind of transparent egoic intolerances they harbor. If you don't play their game, you are a threat. Worse than that, you are irreconcilable. Personally, I could give a damn. Bury the dead where they're found and move along, I say. What society needs is not a positive affirmation or a way to tend to the fragility of our carefully constructed psychological and social constructs or a new type of distraction. As far as I'm concerned, we could easily already be in a golden age beyond any golden age. But people don't know how to access their own truer natures or even the basic foundational choices behind being happy. Happiness, as we know it in society, is a forced state of mind. It creates delusion and bears its fangs quickly to the quote-unquote unenlightened. I do feel in this strange, indescribable way that the greatest path to true happiness is for all of us to unravel each other's highest potential, both individually and as the human species. I have sacrificed literally everything I can, and though there is one force in the universe that is endlessly hammering me with the burden of, supposedly, moral expectations, and telling me endlessly that there is no true success for me, that my beliefs are 100% delusional and wrong, and that I am actually totally alone in my feelings, that the only true path is the one laid out before me by society, despite the endless failures inherent in society. There is also behind me an entire, all-drowning force of love, which is insurmountable, for it burdens the truth of all being one, and our whole existence being inherently connected, that my happiness and yours are not opposed, but one and the same. I would call that force God, and every day it grows stronger within me, and hopefully to the other people in the world who open themselves to the reality that there is an absolute need for human connectedness above all systems of dogma and ignorance that drown out truth as it tries to emancipate us from the endless violence of this world, and that the true way towards this is not through the conquering of one peoples over another, but of furthering our ability to be receptive of other people's suffering and resolving the urge embedded in all things to find true peace. People settle for breadcrumbs all the time. Nothing ever gets done this way. It's just a roller coaster ride that always ends up at the same level it began at. Because more than success, people want distractions. So we settle for a fake narrative, a platitude. I cannot offer you a solution you aren't ready for yet. People like talking to me because I have ideas they haven't thought of yet, but in the end I alone mean nothing. I believe I have been fortunate enough to be led to these ideas because I myself am ready for them and all they entail. Not trying to win anything by spreading truth, merely attempting to succeed where everyone else fails daily. True success will come when my enemies realize I am on their side as well, and when I can bear the truth of my soul to those who would repress the beautiful, ecstatic nature of the true will. To discover the archaic revival, as Terence McKenna wrote/spoke of, we must free the deeper nature of our soul. And doing so is not an easy path. I quote, "Have you planted seeds in the garden of your mind?" Doubtful when mimicry is so easy to reconcile oneself with. Let us consider the control mechanisms tucked amongst today's erroneous no-culture. A man will find his purpose and competitive edge for the better sake of conformism and reproduction. This is his ordained path, and such a course is easily known to him. It is the steadfast path of do what everyone else is doing, but better. The tightrope walk of trying to be yourself while still appeasing the known entities which culture depends on. Fall one way and he may land upside down in an insane asylum for being too strongly and earnestly himself. Another way he falls, he may die an old bitter namesake on the company bandwagon. The easy way out is to simply conform. Conformists cannot fathom the concepts of humanity's dark selfishness or societal change very well. But consider their natural habitat. Not only is it ripe territory for the instituted ivory tower to preordain an entire populace's primary beliefs, but it creates a scenario where we are all like both prisoner and guard to its value sets. Nothing is more important to a conformist than feeling like they are not being told what to do. Oddly, that doesn't jive well with the connotations/usage of the word conform. Conformism must be implicit, and this is where strength is for them drawn. Conformism is a kind of pandemic of epic proportions today. In the words of band Don Caballero, there's a kind of world-class listening problem. Conformism is the reason you may like reality TV today. Believe it or not, I've actually watched an entire season of a show called Queer Eye. I think it's here that the belly of the beast can be observed in its natural state. These 5 men are very, very good at the game we call society, not because of their sexual orientation, but because they understand the concepts that formulate appeals to attraction, the idea of success, and self-gratification as it is based in the strongly iterated values of society. For me, these things are the crap that distracts you from the shinola of true and continual inner self-mastery and ultimate fulfillment. As a teenager, I always felt different from other people because I wanted to pursue how knowledge can shift and change the perspective we have on our daily interactions. I sought out my own gurus and spent most of my time trying to understand the realm of higher thought. I think most of what I learned from the likes of Terence McKenna, Alan Watts, and Elliot Hulse is not even their teachings, but the manner in which they taught me how to think over and express ideas which are alien to society. In a way, I was trying to educate myself for the first time in my life in a way which was actually applicable to intellectualism and the real world, because all school did, post the basics like math and writing, was a complete waste of my time. 18 years of life wasted on trivial obstacle courses of the mind. I had to teach myself what I really wanted in the world, which is harder than it sounds for the non-conforming. In the words of band Yesair, it's hard having fun. It's much easier said than it's done. It was around the time I did this that, ironically, I started to experience more obvious signs of my schizophrenia. It seemed to trigger from a reaction of a desire to deconstruct social norms. In a way, the reality of my schizophrenia is easier to contend with than the social reality. To me, hearing voices is like the passive principles to the other side of the coin of socializing, which is the active principles of engaging people directly in conversation. Because, understand, my voices have a tendency to attach themselves to what other people are saying at the very edge of my perception. They do this so that it can seem as though people are conspiring to say these things in a dirty attempt to make me go crazy. But I learned from my madness. I dive deep into the trenches of meaning that is behind these voices, and find that my brain is trying to make some kind of a connection to people that it cannot totally execute in the plane of physical reality. Like, there is something I mean to inspire in people that will get them to wake up the true power lying dormant in their souls and simultaneously get aboard with my ideology, if I'm lucky. This is the warfare I choose to engage with through what I believe is actually not a disorder, but more akin to what is called light working. That is, I am trying to sow the seeds for a better future in the deeper trenches of the psyche of the collective unconscious. You can do the same thing by checking out my Spirituality is Anything You Want It to Be video, if you so choose to. Schizophrenia is, in my opinion, a way of getting tangled up in the power of manifestation as it slowly seeps its way into the shared reality. The spiritual nature of reality is often lost upon us as a culture which has abandoned the way of the shaman. Most people simply won't understand that the physical is a mere repercussion of that which is spiritual. So to dismiss the spiritual as nonsense or somehow less important warps your sense of reality against your higher perceptions, which is a tragedy. This is why we have to reformat culture from the ground up. Terence McKenna made some incredible headway, in my opinion, in terms of bringing society to a more enlightened state, but we have to be able to transcend the dependence on psychedelics to access a spiritual reality. And to do this, we must transcend also our notions that schizophrenia is purely a negative disorder. I remember when I was put into a mental hospital, I felt something in there that I have never felt before. A deep, ever-present connection between the subconscious of myself and the others in there with me. It was like, in every second, our minds were beating like hearts in unison. Not only that, but the social environment was understanding and empathetic in direct correlation with the shift in my so-called schizophrenic symptoms. And these are the so-called crazy people, apparently. I think Kanye West is right in saying that one day we will not so flippantly use the word crazy to describe people. I think it will be similar to saying a word that begins with an F and ends with a T to describe a gay person. I strongly believe that any symptoms of mental disease are merely the negative side of a deep yearning or even connection to the spiritual reality. The true potential of the spiritual lies dormant within all of us and manifests in different ways for everyone. I believe the true goal of spirituality is the deepest expression of one's soul in the form of art in any manner, which includes the way we interact with other people. How we choose to express our personhood is almost unlimited in potentialities and should be viewed as an art to those who choose to live the more examined life. A lot of people view socializing as less of an art and more of a science which, don't get me wrong, has its own purpose, but to the extent we choose to play the kind of left-brain dominance games which are to me so pointless in any honest endeavor to engage in the expression of one's soul, we are cutting ourselves off from our highest potential. I suppose the way in which I identify with the left-brain side of socializing is the way in which I try to convert people to my ideology, and to that extent I can be very ruthless. Engaging yourself with false ideology is very dangerous the way I see it, and a half-truth can be even more dangerous than a full lie. For this reason, I swear to you I am not trying to be egoic or abrasive, but I understand if you think I can come off that way. My favorite example in this regard of half-truths being dangerous is Buddhism and any similar principles of self-mastery. I am especially sensitive to this issue because I too was subject to the plague of self-help in the form of meditation, cold showers, social game theory, i.e. trying to be a so-called alpha, dopamine fasting, actual fasting, and yoga. All these things are half-truths and consumed a great deal of my life, and while you are probably treading the right path if you engaged in any of them, they ultimately are husks to be discarded in the name of ultimate truth. Why is this so important? Because I believe it is our destiny as a species to reobtain the child consciousness, as Alan Watts puts it, and the most effective way to do this is through a mindful application of anabolic and proper catabolic principles. That is, physical anabolism and spiritual catabolism, so that we can transition to a society of physical attachments to the higher states. I'm not going to go into why each of these things I mentioned is fundamentally flawed. It's a topic for another video, but I want you to understand the purpose behind aligning yourself with my ideology. If I were to name it, I might call it the Church of Anabolism, i.e. Constructive Metabolism. This is because most of the principles in question have to do with reducing the catabolic load on our bodies in order to free up more energy to flow into passive processes such as the immune system and our sense of spiritual connectedness. I'll give two essential examples of this. When meditating, it is actually ideal not to do the lotus position as prescribed by most Buddhist teachings, but to simply lay down in a restful position. This is so that your kundalini, or essential energy, can better circulate through your body, which is really the main goal of all this. The ideals of meditation are in alignment with my beliefs, for they often tell you not to dismiss/suppress your thoughts, but simply allow them to pass. Meditation is kind of like an exercise for your mind, and for my opinion on exercise, please view my video The Myth of Unhealthy Food. Yes, it does enable the mind to improve its processing ability, but this is misguided, because the mind is always condensing and processing information, no matter how we receive it. And in fact, that which causes brain entrainment is the best thing for your brain to be actively processing. Boredom is like a tumor, and no amount of willpower is going to eradicate it on its own. That's right, I'm saying that entertainment is essentially healthy, and it works rather in the same way it has been said in the medieval times that music aids digestion. This is because it aids the natural flow of mental energy towards whatever your personal proclivity is, and away from the cancer of boredom, which your brain has to produce opioids to steel yourself against. See, the reality behind meditation and all these practices is it's simply about constructive metabolism, i.e. building kundalini energy, and with other practices such as manifestation, which have to do with the application of said energy. This is essentially the meaning of life condensed into biological principles, strengthening the power of your inner processes in order to become more peaceful and competent. When Siddhartha Gautama sat meditating under a tree for 40 days to obtain enlightenment, he was coming to grips with what is in principle no different from the mechanics of a runner's high, a continual descent into the catabolic, which is in this case boredom, or in the case of runner's high, physical exertion, to the point where your inner resources start to cave in on themselves and create delusions. Yes, I just called the Buddha delusional. Take his catchphrase, for example. Life is suffering. If you don't know proper principles, then yes, this is true. You will always be suffering because your body is always trying to keep up with the energy load of living. But turn the same idea around and apply the correct principles of constructive metabolism, and what you have instead is that life is happiness, because essentially your kundalini energy is the very force of life, and though it has destructive power of personal transformation, it is also the source of pleasure. Because of these ideas which I just outlined to you, I think it is entirely possible that through proper principles one could effectively cease the negative effects of aging, because the reason behind aging is that your body always requires more life force than it is capable of generating. But if you live in a state of inner harmony, and are free from wasteful expenditures of energy, which include physical stress and stress to the immune system in the form of putrefied food, and also mental stress in the form of boredom, then you can actually go stronger with age and heal most diseases with time. Abstinence from sex and drugs also helps with this. See, aging is merely the culmination of long-term stress on the body. It's not unheard of in nature for a species to live forever either. There's the famed immortal jellyfish, which goes through cycles of maturing, then reverting to its youthful state. The thing we don't understand yet is that everything in our body is designed for the prolonging of or enhancement of life, that is, quantity and quality. Made simple by the design of biology, I'm referring to lifespan and bliss, which occurs naturally with the correct application of principles. And there is a direct correspondence between the two working in tandem for the most effectual life, because your body has finite resources for metabolizing, disorders and illness are the result of your body beginning to fail in its attempt to stay alive. There's a good saying, which is mostly true, that pain is weakness leaving the body. While this is metaphorically true insofar as that it conveys the right message about pain, it is in the literal sense false, because pain is also rather like your taste in foods, which signals you of your body's nutritional needs. That is, pain is a message to your body to change course if you want to conserve your energy for optimal quality of life. Death is always the last resort for your body. I always kind of have a laugh at when the bad guy in a movie says he is going to kill someone slowly as a means of making it worse, when in reality the pain of being tortured is the attempt being made by your body to stay afloat and avoid the objectively least desirable state, which is death. Every cell and fiber of your being exists for the purpose of staying alive. For this reason, it is actually true that you would not want to be a cyborg with artificial body parts, even if in their application they have greater effect than your natural body structure. If you know anything about the theories surrounding chakras of the body and your natural prana, you already understand this. Each cell in your body resonates with the rest of the universe to manifest your metaphysical interaction with reality, and the metaphysical is quite real to those who have enough faith in it. Pain is a signal that your cells are in the process of dying or anticipating death. So while the biological body is weaker in that you have to deal with pain, it also bears the ability to continually regenerate more of itself and to enhance your spiritual aptitude, which is again essentially manifestation and bliss. In this way, any attempt to gain immortality through mechanical means is doomed to fail. Though I lack the exact way to explain this idea to you, I know that it works essentially the same way as a perpetual motion machine, and that only the biological can achieve more than 100% efficiency, that is to say, growth. A machine can only entropy. I believe that, like I mentioned earlier with curing retardation, limb regrowth could occur in humans just as it does in salamanders. This information weighs on me along with the suffering of the world because I am well aware of how absurd I may sound out of context, without proper explanation of why these things work. But I made it my mission since I was 17 to hack biology, and this is what has culminated from my endeavors. It speaks volumes to me that my anecdotal evidence always correlates with my attempted assertions of truth. I don't come to you with anything I have not tested time and time again in myself. When I made my Myth of Unhealthy Food video, I wanted to make it clear from the beginning by stating the absurd lengths I have gone to obtain truth. And I know I sound a bit crazy in that video. How can I not when the truth of the matter is in itself rather crazy? You're operating through the cultural mainframe, and that can only get you so far. Science has, ironically, become my enemy in this regard. You think the future is going to be some Star Trek-esque deal, but I think we need a reassessment of principles. That is, we need to regress in order to progress. I know I say it all the time, but the archaic revival is the future. Maybe in a way Terence McKenna was right about predicting 2012 to be the end of time, in the regard that 2012 may have been the peak of technologically expressed novelty in the universe. He did, after all, say that the universe is a novelty-generating machine. I have a very unpopular opinion, and that is that we have reached a plateau in terms of technological development. I don't believe in time travel or long-distance space travel as being feasible within the parameters of physical reality. I don't believe that there will be any significant technological development beyond what we already have except for the further refinement and development of AI and faster computer processing speeds. I don't think that the age of big data brought about by the advent of quantum computers will significantly revolutionize the concept of computing. AI will definitely change things, but again, we face the hurdle of overcoming our attachment to everyone working a 40-hour work week, as I said in my There Is No Unemployment Crisis video. Self-driving cars are on the horizon, and it is vital we free up our time from menial jobs such as truck driving. I know a lot of people say, what will we do with all that time? And I think that you ask that question is actually symptomatic of the very problem at hand. That problem should be easy to address if you truly had a sense of purpose and livelihood. Simply put, stop being a worker drone and learn to embrace your identity as a human being. You are no automaton. Truly, there is ever much to be gained by exploring the question of what you can do with all that time. I feel my video Spirituality is Anything You Want It to Be sets a strong precedent that I have experienced in my own life of seeking spiritual fulfillment. I want to briefly quote Duncan Trussell's The Midnight Gospel in regards to seeking spiritual fulfillment. Quote, "There's two reasons for doing magic. One is for manifesting something, and that can be anything from a parking spot to the career you want, to the relationship you want to be in, whatever it is. The other reason for doing magic is what I call spiritual sustenance, where you are deliberately invoking energy and intelligences that you then absorb into your energy system, into your aura, to make you grow, make you change." Unquote. Knowing and embracing this is vital to our culture. We can manifest untold amounts of beauty and expressions of inner wealth rather than continually relying on material distractions or external wealth to give our life's definition. This one idea alone is a huge step forwards for the archaic revival. I will perpetuate in myself a continual state of trying to manifest this idea and others into culture until we can begin to grow in this way together. I know that real manifestation is in connecting people's consciousnesses can occur, especially when the goal is meant for the benefit of all. I have witnessed, in my heightened state of health and spiritual attunement, which I have worked on constantly every day, that reality can essentially be tampered with and hacked. The reason it is different with a goal meant for the benefit of posterity rather than more selfish endeavors is that when something is manifesting, it is not just the will of the individual occurring, but the will of a connection between the self and the collective unconscious. So in a way, I can act as a kind of representative, whereby every spark of will that occurs in correspondence and correlation with my own will strengthens my own ability to contribute to said cause. By expanding into the narrative created in the spiritual reality, we can discover so much beyond these dirty lenses, because the reality is that there is so much more going on beyond the veil of reality. And by veil, I simply mean the constant play of reality which is potential versus that which is actual. When I see a concept, unknown to culture itself, manifesting as a continual and deeply personalized narrative between me as the individual maintaining ideas and you as a receptacle which is eternally shifting in subjective nature and proclivity, for the end result of all loose ends coming unto one another, creating mutual understanding by my principles and what culture can begin to accept as true. Let me share with you a passage I wrote of what it is like to be me and the connection between myself and spiritual reality. Cars are afraid. The diner is a quiet day of multitasking. Things happen, nothing happens. People hold stethoscopes up to an undying mechanical heart. Critics speak with nothing in mind but their own propensity for mediocrity. Homeostasis is the loudest note in the building, and sometimes seemingly the only one. Quiet and befouled aggression curtails itself into a broken emotional wreck. You wonder if your desire to be anywhere but here is compelling enough to muscle up a thought that might yonder something contrary to the overbearing zeitgeist of the situation. Threats loom probing, offering their best intents to your mind and striking a dose of poison to your heart. Remembering how it has come that you are present here in this situation strikes a nerve of untapped possibility, a seeming death threat to those towers upholding reality. You can't reconcile culture with reality, so make your own. But you can, if you're the observant kind, see the issues inherent here. But what is this unfathomable circumstance that creates the broken social scene? A lot of this, I realize, is mere human ineptitude. It happens, I get it, but how can one possibly incorporate new systems into the current world? It doesn't work because new thought and improvements to ways of doing things hurts the people who are trying so hard in their little game to get their leg up on the other guy. Easier to just keep on doing everything as has been done in the past, unless it creates a new business for some bigger fish to naturally come up and eat. If we're going to change things, we have to take some responsibility, not just for the faults of mankind, but for our own sense of self-discipline and understanding. People need to aspire to do more than just toil away at a menial job, doing nothing to embolden their true self. We can become a society of beauty, but we are endlessly trifled by corporate culture that censors the deeper truth of both humanity's marvels and failures. The plethora of experiences available to us needs to become apparent and indulged rather than hidden away and repressed. We can reawaken the dream that we dreamed in the 60s of peace and a culture of free expression. The problem that we have with culture today is in two fronts. First, the front of hierarchical, authoritarian society maintaining a rule over our minds, traditions, and beliefs, and secondly, the imperative towards maintaining control over the working class of America through drugs which maintain the operative hive mind and keep it from devising strong countercultural beliefs, which are actually necessary for us to grow. We need to destroy the destructive forces of greed which proliferate in the world. As I said in my video on nationalism, we should focus on ourselves as a global society to eradicate scarcity for all peoples. So I suppose in that way you could call me a globalist. We need to restructure the corporatocracy so that the people control the market and redistribute profits for the benefit of all and not just for a few CEOs. When the people control the market based on collective need instead of individual profiteering, there is no need for competition between companies. Everything is decided based upon what is best. There's no marketing, really, because prices are fixed based upon key factors which are static, with the exception of if/when there's innovation, such as the cost of making it and the resources going into it. Marketing will only exist to explain the difference between different products. Everything is basically approved by the people, and this can occur easily over the internet. Instead of competing to create the best products, customer feedback along with a democratic upvoting system similar to Reddit will occur online to optimize products. Of course, there will be a variety of options where differing preferences occur, but this is just one of many ways the internet could rearrange the economy from the hands of a profiteering few to the hands of our collective needs and wants. Beyond that, we need to restructure society so as to minimize the required work that goes into it, as I said in my There Is No Unemployment Crisis video. Not only will people live happier lives if they don't have to work, but longer lives as well, because your body will be able to redistribute the energy needed for labor to other bodily processes, as I explained before in the Myth of Unhealthy Food video. I think it's entirely possible that human lifespans could dramatically increase if we restructured not only this, but also the way we preserve food by using airtight containers, which are vital if we want to mass distribute food and stay healthy. This may not sound as vital as reducing workloads in society and automation are, but to me I think it matters a great deal that we do all we can to align ourselves with the will of Mother Nature and treat our bodies with great scrutiny. I feel this way because I know the way changing my perspective on health has changed how I feel, and I want everyone else to be able to experience firsthand how good health can be a catalyst for personal evolution. These changes I have outlined have to be, on some level, inevitable if we are going to evolve further as a society, and unlike the supposed future changes from the sciences, these changes work with what we already have available to us in the now. We think that the world change has to come from the powers that be, but nothing is further from the truth. Citation, the Declaration of Independence, duh. I will quote the band Muse. They'll say no one can see us, that we're estranged and all alone, that they believe nothing can reach us and pull us out of the boundless gloom. They're wrong. Society, end quote. Society, faulted as it may be, bears a natural power to it. It has its own type of immune system. It creates antibodies in the form of resistance to the unjust ways that pervade. I can see this happening on the internet, which has greatly enabled this immune system through the greater proliferation of processing cultural data. Almost every video posted by the mainstream media on YouTube maintains a steady flow of negative comments displayed for all to see and appreciate in unison thanks to the upvote system. Don't be fooled by the media. Tear them down from their ordained pedestals and replace them with systems which serve truth. They exist currently only to manufacture consent. Though I'm not a huge Trump fan, I think we can thank him for exposing, as he called it, fake news. He was ruthlessly condemned by the media who would blatantly take him out of context for what he actually was communicating, such as the huge, very fine people on both sides debacle. He literally said right before, in reference to the neo-Nazis, "You had some very bad people in that group," quote. Like, he couldn't have stated it any more clearly there, but the press took the next thing he said and tried to upturn it against him. No matter who you side with politically, this is a gross violation of honesty in reporting. And seriously, I did not even, vote for Trump, so I mean this as plain as I am trying to state it to you. The problem was with the media in this instance, not on Trump, as it was almost constantly. Here's what I know about Trump. He is not deliberately evil, if he is evil at all. He may be a fool or even obtuse even, but he is not evil in the way that the Clintons are evil, that Bush was evil, and yes, even Barack Obama was evil. I don't even know the full extent of Trump's policies. I'm not going to research it because that's not my area of expertise. I'm analyzing sociological trends and using pure rationale to determine what things are causing the world to be worse off. I'm not in the business of being a historical analyzer who can make sense of what which figure did at what time. I'm conceptual, which in a way is very antithetical to the current political landscape and media discussions. I don't want to change how we feel about one event or person. I want to change the way we think about and perceive anything that happens down to the fundamental nature of why things happen. And conformists will always oppose me and want to say ridiculous things like it doesn't matter if I'm actually right or not, because I'm not operating at the level they operate on. Guess what? I want to get things done, and to the degree you are going to have an ego as an individual, you are going to be annoying. Why? Because you think in the world in terms of what is the norm of socialization in society. I never, ever do that except where it is necessary to get by. That doesn't make me a psychopath, it just makes me a jerk. But I bring this up because the problem is you've confused the society with the reality, when you need to be able to separate the two to get new ideas. O foolish mortal, with your ego bound to this mortal coil, you must learn to suffer well. There is all too much out of your grasp, or is it? You could be a great-souled one. It's the only thing to be aspired. But the gods of materialism reign, I know this. Fret not, child. I have my own armaments of psychological warfare outside of you. The veil works for all who know how to use it. Do you seek drastically and embrace the half-truths of the New Age, as they are calling it? Or do you dwell willfully in the catacombs of ignorance? I can bear the truths of reality like so many fruits of old, but know this, like the resistance working against the Matrix, I too will treat any of you as my enemies so long as you stand in opposition to the truth. We are all mere objects reformatting the predator-prey dynamic to our individuated advantage. Beware the deep web, because it knows that the real threat was you all along. For it was you the universe began with, and it is with internet memes that it will end. Keep calm and let the feast begin. Sing the truth of your soul. Take no prisoners. Find the hill you are willing to die on and survive every trespass. This is the only true path to enlightenment. Everything else is mere breadcrumbs tossed to placate and indoctrinate you. For every human soul bears with it infinite potential, but all too often the very greatest among us go unrecognized by their generation. Destiny will slowly guide our collective course in the right direction, whether willfully or kicking and screaming. This is fact, tried and true, for it is the evil man who is the truest fool of them all. To quote architecture in Helsinki, don't you know that it is understood that if you take away the sunshine, then you take away the starlight? All doubt of this will be erased in the wake of evil's darkest night. Do you know yourself truly? Then I say let's begin with the past and front and all the things that you really don't care about now. I'm on stage and it's all an act, and I'm really scared that I may fall back on the abstract, in the words of Ween. I wax unconvinced that you actually do know yourself. Do you know that you and I and a flame make three, as quoted from the band Akron Family, is a deep truth? 'Cause we're all just fumbling, baby. Fumbling in the dark, for our heart of hearts, in the words of the band Chick Chick Chick. If I show you hatred, it is your ignorance that I am attacking in the same way a surgeon will excise a tumor. Yes, I will commit psychological warfare for the greater good. I do everything I do because I know that the heart is nothing but a shell for your heart of hearts, again in the words of the band Chick Chick Chick. Are we living in the age of information or the age of alienation? Are we fast on the heels of utopia or treading the edges of a ruthless dystopia? Never has there been such a rich swath of potential for either good or evil to reap, and yet it seems to be a discourse out of reach to us multitudes. I offer myself as a vessel by which to unite the forces of disillusionment in one voice. I will deconstruct this reality, and all that holds it in a state of ignorance, and devote my full being towards truth. Join me, and we will go beyond red and blue pill, and grow ever closer to the archaic revival.